Welcome to Aaron Ask America, where Aaron Ask America. On today's episode, I'm actually pretty excited to talk to my friend Evan. We've known each other for probably just under a year, but we've hit it off pretty good, at least I think. So, I'm so excited to have him on the show. And welcome, Evan. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and yeah, super awesome, man.
Without making things so stinking weird or whatever. I'm just going to get it out of the way. So, you have friends in your life that are good storytellers. They know how to tell a story. So, when this idea, when Christy comes back, you can ask her, when this idea was formulating in my head to try to come up with this, I was like, I really hope Evan says he'd come on the show. And then when I put that Facebook post, and you're like, I'll be on the show. I'm like,
Yeah, dude.
because you tell stories, you tell them so well because you know them so well, and you've had a much more interesting life than, hey, I was born and then now I'm 44, right? So that's basically my story. A couple bumps in the road, but as I've gotten to know you, from the motorcycles to the stuff where you're saying that you are kind of piecing things together and then writing them.
Yeah,
So if I remember you correctly, you're 35.
I am. I'm
Okay.
35.
So you're 35.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 44. So essentially, I'm like a generation older than you, right? As far as the thing,
Almost, I guess,
right?
maybe.
So what did, what was kid Evan into growing up?
Well, it's kind of a shorter list of what I wasn't into, really. Wasn't into being at school. Uh, wasn't into homework, things like that. No, I don't know. My childhood is a lot like sort of like a realistic Dennis the Menace, I suppose. I was kind of a mischievous kid. Never really did anything really bad, but you know, definitely gave my mom lots to stress about, and lots of parent-teacher conferences, things like that. So
Yeah.
I'd say I was adventurous, and running around with probably some undiagnosed ADD.
I think we all were.
Right.
But what I mean, okay, so maybe I should have clarified it. So I grew up, right, every day coming home from school, like Batman the Animated Series,
Mm.
right, or He Man as a kid,
Hmm.
because you're 10 years older than my oldest son.
Okay.
So that means you weren't into Blues Clues because that wasn't around, because that's like the beginning stages of
Mm.
my oldest son. So was it did you watch cartoons? Was that something that you were in, like SpongeBob?
Yeah, we watched cartoons. Really though, I mean, yeah, like your standard stuff, like I don't know, the old school Nickelodeon stuff. You got like Doug and um, Rugrats and things like that. Like Ninja Turtles. I was real into the
Yeah.
Turtles when I was a kid, but really, I was an outside kid. We played video games and watched TV and whatever, but I was more interested in being outside.
Yeah. Yeah, so the only time during my generation, during my time, Saturday mornings was a big thing,
Mm.
right? Because I think by the time that you hit your stride in the cartoon run, I think was Saturday morning
It
cartoons a thing.
was. Yeah, we did Saturday morning cartoons and whatever. And my favorite was like Big Chin Batman is what I called him.
Yeah,
I think we've talked about that before, but that specific like mid '90s Batman,
yeah, Batman the Animated Series.
right? The
Yeah,
animated series. Yeah, definitely watched a lot of that. I remember actually I remember Batman coming on right as I would get home from school.
yeah,
And so, like, that would buy you some time before you had to do your homework or
yeah.
whatever.
So you
Mm.
coming home at I don't know, 7 or 8 years old,
Yeah,
Aaron, me coming home at 17 or 18, we're sitting down watching the same
the same
same
deal.
cartoon, because Batman the Animated Series, of course, as a Batman fan, as I've put this over
Right.
here, it was a definitive part of the Batman history. So I think that's pretty funny
That's pretty
that
cool.
you were much younger, sitting down. You were the appropriate age to be watching Batman, and here I am. So question: did you watch the Power Rangers?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
like
Probably not as much. I remember we were kids. Our me and my cousins, our parents got us all Power Ranger jammies.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was a different color ranger, whatever.
Who was your Power Ranger?
I don't know that I really had one.
Everybody likes the Green Ranger.
Right.
No? Yes?
R.I.P., bro.
I know, it sucks.
I don't know. Probably the Red Ranger. I've kind of been a red fan.
Yeah.
Typical boy, favorite color red. I don't know. I'd say I'd probably go with that, the red dude.
Red Ranger. Yeah, so do you remember, were you a Pink Ranger fan
Oh, yes, sir.
or a Yellow Ranger fan? Or both?
You know what?
We were just having a conversation on Fire Resistant about this the other day about Amy Jo Johnson versus, I forget the girl's name in real life. Her name was Trini in the show. But like we were having this conversation like, hey, because like I was on the tip of being too old for Power Rangers because Power Rangers came out whenever I was a junior in high school. So like the only reason like, oh, you watch Power Rangers? Yeah, I watch it for the Pink Ranger because I was a Pink Ranger. Amy Jo Johnson, that was a high school crush. But like it's interesting because you being younger, like was it the Yellow
Yeah.
Ranger or the Pink Ranger?
I'm gonna go pink.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lock that in. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was it? Someone brought up, I guess, the second Pink Ranger because they kept on going on.
Oh,
going on.
yeah. I didn't know
But
anything about that.
Yeah, there was a second Pink Ranger where like I was like, I should have watched that Power Rangers.
Really?
Yes, I don't remember her name, but
I'm curious now. I'm gonna have to
yeah.
Google that
I think
later.
her name, was her name Kat in the show or something. I forget who it was, but someone's like, look up this girl. She took over for Kimberly, or she became a different Pink Ranger because there's been so many Power Rangers. And I was like, oh, I should go on Netflix and see what's up with the Power Rangers.
I'll have to
Like
check
a
that out.
creepy old man style, right? So, so you said that you were more of an outside kid. So,
Oh, yeah.
so Saturday mornings for us, my generation, was more like wake up, eat cereal, watch cartoons, and then it was roller hockey, right? So our thing was getting out there and playing roller hockey from when you got home from school, Batman, roller hockey. Then wake up, go to school, Batman, roller hockey, right? And then Saturday morning, roller hockey from basically sun up to sundown. So
Yeah.
like, what was things that were you already building bicycles at 10
Um,
or motorcycles?
no,
Rocket ships?
no. Man, no, I wasn't into anything like that just yet, but I did play roller hockey as well, and that's really cool. It was really popular in the area, late '90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
When they put up that roller hockey rink at the Bedford Boys Ranch, I was actually the first group there in the YMCA that played in
Wow.
league there, and did that for a couple years, and then we did like a select league in South Lake from my coach who had moved from that YMCA league to another league in South Lake, and he brought on most of the other players from the team. But man, we had a blast.
Oh, so when I say I played roller hockey, it was on the streets. You
Well, we
actually-
did that too.
you
We
did
were
that?
playing pickup games on the. I lived in a cul-de-sac growing up.
Even better.
Yeah, and so this line and this house number is goal number 1, and the light pole and this crack in the pavement is goal number 2.
Yeah.
And it's prison rules and whatever.
See, that was gonna be my next question. Is so we didn't have checking per se
Yeah.
in the street, but we had like our rink was from one end to it was like three. I think it was a total of 3 houses,
Okay.
like length of our rink, and then of course the curb was the barrier for it. But we had a thing called sideline kill. So like if you were over by the curb and
You're
you were
free
like
game.
doo-doo-doo, boom into the grass because nobody wanted to be checked into the pavement, right? But like with the whole thought process was you get hit, you fall into the grass, not gonna get hurt so bad.
Right.
Guess what? I probably got scars on my elbows and stuff because when you fall over, there's like this much grass between the sidewalks. You still fall on the sidewalk. But
Sure.
did y'all check each other on the street?
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh sure. I mean, I'm sure it happens. But I do remember, like in league situations as a kid, all the refs were like teenagers. They're like your son's age,
Yeah.
and so we'd get a little beef, brewing against the other team, and I don't know, maybe dude breaks away from me and I shove my stick in his skate and he goes down and the ref goes,
Yeah.
or
No
you
rules.
get somebody in
Yeah.
the boards, you start throwing elbows or something, and they're like, they think it's funny, man. They're watching a little kid. I mean, I'd probably let it go too if
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
let it hash out. Let
Yeah,
them.
well, the thing right now is, do you watch hockey at all?
I do, yeah,
So, like, the Stars are basically potentially going to be eliminated tonight, but like, the
yeah.
refs have gotten involved into the game where they've
Mm-hmm.
taken over instead of like the last playoffs, right? The last series, like the referees like didn't really call anything, but this one it seems like they're like, yeah, we want the Oilers to win again, so Dallas
Well,
Stars go jump in a lake.
that could be the puppeteers in Vegas or whatever.
That
We
could
won't
be
get
it.
into all that
No,
though.
not yet, not yet. But so you played in a league,
Uh huh.
and like is that fond memories or is that like
Very, yeah.
because like for me,
Mhm,
right, we just played on the streets. There
mhm.
was no league. There was no like. I think my junior year in high school, they Keller or not Keller, but Fossil Ridge and Keller, like they combined together to form an actual ice hockey team.
Oh yeah.
So these schools that were at everything were like, let's come together and make a hockey team. How do you think that worked out? Didn't.
Sounds like a
So
great Disney
yeah,
movie though.
I didn't know how to ice skate at the time, so I never played
Right.
ice hockey, but I knew that it existed. So there was no hockey leagues for me. It was
Mm.
just like go out and if you found out like
Honestly, it's just as fun.
yeah,
If you get enough guys to play, it might be even more fun. But no, it was definitely very fond memories, especially for a kid like myself that had a lot of energy to burn and maybe some pent up aggression and
mm,
things like that. It was really good for an angry little boy.
mm.
So it was really good for me. And then uh, I don't really know why I stopped playing. I guess it was getting closer to junior high and
What position did you play?
whatever. Left wing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like goal scorer?
Sometimes
Nice.
I would actually, I don't know. I was really good on skates. I bet, I'm still pretty decent. But
Yeah.
when I was younger, I was very, very good on my skates, and so I was able to move around a whole lot better. And we really, we worked hard on being good at hockey, and we got a lot of practice, so ended up playing pretty well.
So did y'all play with a ball or with the puck with the balls in it?
So we like at home. I preferred playing with like the roller ball.
Yeah.
But we played with the plastic pucks that had the those little wear circles on them. I guess the little plastic nubs on them so they could slide on the concrete.
Yeah.
But that's what like the league played with.
Nice. So that does that mean that you are? I guess before I ask that question, did you ever have any like game winning goals where like, or maybe like you're running out of time, you score the goal, ties the game, goes into OT type plays?
Uh, Actually, yeah, there was a guy who played on the other team. I don't know why I remember this, but he had his stick was so filed down, it may have been like seriously like
Like
2
a
inches.
sickle, like he was cutting
Well,
people up.
just from wear, I
Yeah.
suppose, and so it wasn't, at full thickness. It's probably about 2 inches wide, and I broke away and was able to get a shot off, and it went uh, over his stick because it was so whittled
Filed down,
down, and ended up being the game-winning goal or whatever, and I remember my coach saying, like, if he'd had a good stick,
yeah.
it'd be a different story.
You would have said, I would have
But
shot higher.
hey,
I would have shot higher. I would have bounced the ball over the other way, different way.
not like he was stealing my thunder or
Yeah.
anything. It is what it is. But
Come on, coach.
no, it was, man. I have a lot of good memories, and some of the neighborhood kids played on my team with me, and yeah, we had a lot of fun. And what was really cool about the time that I was playing in leagues would have been like 97 to like 2000. Well, the Stars won the Stanley
99,
Cup in
yeah.
99.
Yeah.
And so, like, my hockey team is like together watching our local boys win the Stanley Cup. Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of a cool time to be into the sport.
It was, and I remember staying up because it was a Saturday night.
Mm.
Was it double overtime when Brett Hull finally
Yeah.
scored that goal?
Yeah.
Almost probably.
Was that in? Yeah, that's right. Against the Sabres.
Hmm.
And
Buffalo Sabres.
Dominic Hasek, the old
Yeah.
slinky back. Yeah.
So fast forward, then I'll bring it back because I still want to ask you about a movie. So like fast forward, I don't know. Let's see, Dexter was alive. So let's say 15 years ago, I was doing job. I was working for a company that basically were contract jobs. So we would fly to different places and work there for a couple weeks and then come home type deal. So one of the very last contract I did for them, they flew us up to Buffalo, right? So you kind of already see where this may be going.
Yeah.
So like this has been what many years since Brett Hull scored that goal, right? First night at the hotel, there's probably like 30 of us because we were going there to do a specific job for Bank of America. I sit down at the bar just to see what's on the menu, not to drink, but to sit down on the menu. And the bartender walks up to me, or not, he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "What do you got?" I'm like, "Dr. Pepper," and he goes, "What are y'all doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, we're working for Bank of America, blah blah." He's like, "Where y'all from?" And I said, "Oh, we're from the Dallas Fort Worth area." And then he leans in and he goes, "You know that Brett Hull was in the crease, right?" Doesn't know me, doesn't know if I watch hockey, care about hockey. 10, 15 years later, he's like, "You know that Brett Hull was in the crease, right?" Just so happened, I was watching and I knew it, right? And I was like, "No." I was like, "We won, didn't we?" He's like, "Yeah, whatever." But like years and years later, there's that one bartender at that one hotel we were staying at was like, "Brett Hull was in the crease." I mean, he was, but I mean, our names are on the Stanley Cup, aren't they?
They sure are. They
But
sure
yeah,
are.
so I figured you might find that funny since
That
you
is
were
hilarious.
were like you were watching this team that I was win the Stanley Cup, but then like what I wanted to go back, and I think I may already know the answer to this, but like, does that mean that you were a Mighty Ducks fan?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So like,
I wore those VHS tapes out.
yes, yeah, yeah. So okay, controversial question.
Okay.
What did you think of Mighty Ducks 3?
Not a fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say I'm not a fan. I watched it and enjoyed it, but it was, I look at it as its own thing. Maybe it's definitely separate from the first two in
Yeah.
my book. Yeah.
It was always interesting to me why and it could have been like Emilio Estevez asking for
I
too much
mean,
money or something like that.
I would
But it was
imagine.
always weird that they're like, yeah, you know what we need? We need to put in a new coach, right? And granted, like, the kids didn't like him. And of course, us as fans watching the first two movies were like, what the heck, man? Like, what are they doing here? And it just became stale real quickly. And, by the end of the movie, you're supposed to be like, yeah, he's just as awesome as Emilio Estevez. And it's just like, nope,
He's not.
nope, he is not.
He's no Emilio.
Because I think they brought in, the character's name. Do you remember his name?
I do not.
Gordon Bombay.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
Coach Bombay,
yeah.
but I didn't know. Was that his name in the third one as well?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant what I was going to say is they brought back Coach Bombay at the very end.
Right, like a cameo in
Yeah,
the movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like, all right, here's a few bucks. Come over here and be like, hey, Ducks, quack, quack, quack.
His agent's going, okay, hear me out.
Hear me out.
We didn't get you fully in there, but you're right before the credits. You're gonna make a scene.
We're behind on taxes,
Yeah, yeah,
and we
yeah.
need a cameo. Disney's
Yeah.
asking for it.
Martin Sheen is my dad.
Yeah. Did you ever see? I don't want to get on too much of a movie. Did you ever see Platoon
Yeah.
and Apocalypse Now?
Yep.
I thought, I always thought that was crazy that son and dad played in Vietnam movies. I always
Right.
thought that was a wild scenario because, like, I saw Platoon way before I saw Apocalypse Now, and then when someone's like, "Do you ever see Apocalypse Now?" I'm like, "What is that?" And they're like, "You ever hear that? I love the smell of napalm in the morning." I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly where that's from." So went and watched it, and
Robert Duvall. Yeah.
yeah, Robert Duvall, and like opening sequence, Martin Sheen is like ninja kicking in front of a mirror while doing whatever drugs that he was on, and they're like, "We need you back to Vietnam." But yeah, anyways, so I sidetracked this on that, but just because of Martin Sheen, you had brought him up, but yeah, I thought that I just don't know why that he didn't come back. I'm sure it's probably somewhere on the internet on why he didn't come back, but
Maybe him and Charlie was in rehab together. Who
yeah.
knows?
Did you ever try to knuckle puck? I think did you?
Oh, I
Yeah,
think everyone did.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna
Yeah.
say I think everybody did it,
Not a
but
very effective shot.
no, because it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or did you ever try to do the Bash Brothers thing where like you and a friend were like, yeah, and then
Oh, I lived it, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you played in the league. You were able to actually do that. I was sideline
I did a
killed.
little penalty box
Did
time.
you?
Oh yeah.
Were you a main penalty box guy, or did you stay away from it?
Back then it was one box. I mean,
Well, I mean, like what I mean is like, did you spend a majority of the time in the
no,
box? Okay.
I wouldn't say so, but
What was your favorite penalty to get?
uh, probably dropping somebody on the open rink.
Like roughing?
Well, like open ice. Yeah, like hitting them too high, or what I mean.
Yeah.
You kind of more or less use your shoulder to clothesline somebody.
Yeah.
It's really satisfying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yeah.
Let me help you back up. Oh, you can't get up. All right, I'll go over to a penalty box for 2 minutes.
Or getting too rough or whatever, they'd kind of put you in the box for that. Like you get off in the corner of the boards with somebody, and
Yeah.
it turns into more of like an actual wrestling match than playing hockey. They'll probably put.
What did?
When we were kids, though.
Yeah. What did Fred say? He said you go to a fight and a hockey game breaks out.
Yeah.
My dad took me to. Did you ever go to any Fort Worth Fire? Or were you too
Oh,
young?
absolutely. The Brahmas and the Fire. Yeah.
Okay, because the Fire I think was only around for a few seasons
Yeah.
before I think either they just disbanded or they
Yeah.
became the Brahmas. I'm not
Right.
exactly sure what happened.
I'm not real sure about that dynamic either. I do know that there was at one time two Fort Worth teams.
Yeah.
The Fire and the Brahmas, and they played at Reunion Arena, and it was kind of like a coin flip on which team was going to be playing that night. But
Yeah.
we went to, as a team, we would go to like Brahmas games together because they were cheap.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they still are pretty cheap.
Oh, the Brahmas, yeah. Well, you can go there and I forget what tickets because Elise sang their choir sang national anthem there at the Brahmas
Very cool.
about a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And we bought, I think they were like $10 a piece seats. It's not. It's still hockey. It's still fun to
Yeah.
watch, but
Going to a game is a ton of fun. I'd say as far as like professional sporting events, I think hockey's probably one of the more, fun games to go to. It's fast paced.
especially at the
It's
refs
the
stay out
only
of it.
game where they'll just completely stop it and let two dudes just beat the snot out of each other. And
Yeah.
I think that's just a beautifully American thing.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree. Like, so the previous church that I went to before the pastor lost his mind, he had like almost season tickets or maybe half season tickets at the Stars, and it was right behind the goal. It was like you could see him on TV like every week, just sitting back there because he had like fire red hair, right? But like ever so often, he's like, "Hey, you want to go?" Yes.
Yeah.
Sit like 3-4 rows back from the goalie and just enjoy the game, and you get used to it. You hop on the Trinity, you make it home. You don't have to worry about traffic or anything like that. But yeah, so I've been to quite a few hockey games outside of the ones that my dad took me to whenever I was a kid. So I agree, hockey is fun to watch just because of the fact that like if you mess with me enough, there's a high probability that gloves are coming off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's really fun. I remember there was a dude. He wasn't a very big guy, but he was the enforcer for the Brahmas back in the day, and they called him the Tasmanian Devil. And basically, an enforcer, for those maybe watching that don't know what that is basically a guy who can fight good on skates.
Yeah.
He's probably not the best hockey player on the team, but like he can hold his balance and punch people.
And check them real good.
Right. So when they had something they needed to settle on the ice or whatever, they'd call this dude out, and on the little jumbotron it'd be like the Tasmanian Devil. The crowd goes wild, and beers are getting thrown and whatever. And, he'd come out and beat somebody up, and they get the camera, getting him off the ice or whatever.
So was it Darian Hatcher? I think Darian Hatcher was the enforcer for the Stars.
Yeah.
It's either him or Kevin. I can't remember.
I would probably say his Hatcher. Yeah,
Yeah. So I
he's a
remember.
big dude.
So yeah, those were good times when it comes to watching them when they would get going too. back in the day because you're like, oh, okay, Darian Hatcher is going to go out there and take care of business. And
Well, I've had this conversation with somebody recently. We were trying to find, I think it's called The Last Gladiators, but it's a documentary strictly about NHL enforcers. So you got like Chris Nylon with the Islanders, I believe, and a lot of the old school guys that
Happy Gilmore.
they're literally real life Happy Gilmores. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but they're well. I mean, that was like their job is
Yeah.
they just beat people up and then line change.
Yeah,
or
we
when
need
they
to
come
make
out
it to
of
the
box.
playoffs. You need to go get a 5-minute major.
I mean, it's a lot like the rivalries and the grudges in baseball. How like they'll play a certain team a couple series ago and their pitcher hit one of their boys, and then they're like, all right, they won't do anything then, but like next series, there's going to be some
Yeah.
sort of retaliation. You know what I mean? It's like that in hockey, I guess, too, but they're actually
Yeah.
going to pound your face until one of y'all falls down.
The guy that hit our star in the foot, like slashed him really hard. I'm surprised he's still like. That shows you where the sport is now compared to where it used to be. Because did you see that slash? It was awful.
I don't know if I
He was
caught
just
that one. I caught the one where the guy got high sticked in the nose
Now,
recently.
well, so it was game one. There was a little scuffle, kind of like in front of the goal. The play was broken up. The star went to, if I remember correctly, went to like leave the area, and the guy just went kaboom and
I
hit
did
him,
see that.
dropped him, and
Yeah.
he just came back last game.
I remember seeing that clip thinking, okay, but that doesn't look that bad, but I guess, I don't know.
So what he did, because we showed it, so like here's your foot and here's your leg. I know it's an amazing thing, but like so the pads go all the way down to where you basically kind of tie your shoe or your skate.
Well, behind the lip of your
Yeah, so
skate.
he hit him right where the
Oh,
pad.
where those two meet, so
Yes.
he got straight shin.
Yeah, he
Nice.
got well. It was. I don't think it was straight shin, but I guess that there's a nerves that go down the top of your foot that when he hit that, like his body just. It did enough damage where he missed 2 games.
Hey, hockey players are pound for pound the toughest athletes out
Yeah.
there, and if he's hurt, I believe him.
It's true. But so like outside of hockey, seeing that we could talk about hockey. all
Oh,
day
dude,
long.
yeah.
But so you said that the other night when we were talking at the men's thing, you had mentioned, and if you don't want to talk about it, even though I think you said you don't mind, is because like whenever I went to school, there was like one fight, like maybe half a school year or something like that, or there was multiple fights like last day of school, like people have had enough, so they just throw down in the lunchroom. But you had told a story that blew my mind about like when you went to school, like on the way to school, it was like if you walk in or out of the wrong door, it was like beat up time. Like
Sometimes, really, in like junior high, it was a lot more volatile, I guess. It's kind of being in Hearst, so you kind of have kind of a lower income area blended in with like kind of lower middle class. Just the suburbs of Hearst, really.
Yeah.
I mean, south of the freeway. We used to
Across
make that
the
joke.
railroad
Yeah,
tracks.
we used to make that joke. South of the freeway, you better have that Huffy put up after 9 o'clock.
I forgot about Huffy, Huffy's and Diamondbacks, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, in high school, things progressed into worse things.
Yeah. Slowly moving toward adulthood.
Actual
yeah.
crime.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, definitely junior high was a you kind of had to watch yourself a little bit, and there was fights all the time, and kind of a rough crowd. And so what's weird about that is, so you have like a main principal, and then you have 2 assistant principals, right, for a school that size, and we were a pretty rough crowd, and when we went from 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, you report to the same 3 people. Well, that 9th grade summer, when we all were going to high school now, starting 10th grade, all three of those administrative people, head principal and two assistants, took a job at LD Bell High School where me and the other ragamuffins were headed. So we answered to the same people for 6 years. And so, like, I've got some pretty deep history in that 6 years of talking to these folks. And oddly enough, the head principal actually went to LD Bell with my mother in the late 70s, like, graduated in the late 70s with my mom. So, like, he knows my mom.
I'm going to call her up. I'm telling you.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, they pretty much had her on speed dial. And I remember, like, my senior year, I went to the office for something. I used to save my office referrals if they were funny or whatever. And I would, like, hang them up. And I don't know whatever happened to those. I would love to find those someday and hide them from my kids, right?
Yeah.
But my last week of senior year, and I'm in the office for something stupid. And the principal, he's like, Evan, he goes, man, you've been in this office a lot in the last 6 years. And he's like, in every single time you come in here, for whatever reason it is, you approach it like you're a defense lawyer, like you're not already dead to rights and, like, in trouble. Like, you're always like, this is all a huge misunderstanding, you know what I mean, etc. But he goes, man, good luck to you. He's like, straight up, he's like, good luck to you. I was like, thanks, or whatever. Like,
and then now you're like, all right, Mr. Smith or whatever his name is. What we should do is we should drive by his house and be like, look at me now, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for the good luck.
Everybody had Evan goes to prison on their bingo card, but I get to inform him that, you know, he did not sink my battleship.
Did not sink your battleship. Successful, working a job, and not in prison. The most important thing.
That's right. Doing the next right thing. How about that?
There you go. So for me, like, I had a buddy of mine, because, you know, I don't know how they do them now, or they did at your school, but you had hall passes. They were actually written on paper. A buddy of mine who was like an office assistant or whatever, he, like, kept stealing them and giving them to me. So, like, I had, like, stacks of hall passes that, like, you know, if you know.
There you go, man.
Right, because the teachers didn't look at them.
Yeah, where are your papers, student?
Right. The teachers never looked at them, so we had, like, stacks of hall
Wayne's
passes.
World, excuse me.
Yeah, mom dropped him off, blah, blah, blah. Here you go, right? So, like, you know, cross country was always first period, and so, like, generally late getting out of there. So it's like, all right, here you go.
You could have capitalized on that.
I could have, but there was a sticker class at Fossil where that's where I capitalized. If you look hard enough, I don't know if I have any around here, but, like, you could make stickers, and people would pay you, you know, $10, which was a lot back then, right? Where, you know, it was basically you would draw it out, and then the machine, you would put the different colors in there, and then it would just, and you put them all together on top of each other.
Are we talking like a vinyl cutter?
Yeah, but it was stickers.
Right.
Right. So I was making, like, Shaggy, you know, at the time.
You're putting them cricket moms to shame a long time ago. Man.
Yeah. So, like, there was Shaggy. Shaggy was really popular, and he got in between $10 and $15 because it was green, like, brown.
Oh, because you got to do different layers.
Yeah, different layers on top of each other. You know, at the time, there was a really popular thing that's, I mean, you've seen it around. It's Mickey Mouse flipping you off while having a cigarette or something else in his mouth. Like, print out those. Those were sell like hotcakes. The Nike swoosh was super popular, so you'd print those
you remember
out.
the kid peeing on stuff on the Ford symbol and all that?
Calvin and Hobbes, right? So, like,
that dude?
Yes, Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Those, you just remind me, that was another thing that we would print out, but that was one color, so, like, you would print it out, and then, hey, you know, can you make it peeing on the cowboy sign? Print it out. Can you have pee on, like, Ford? Here you go, you know, type deal. But, like, that one was, I think that one was like $2 or $3 because there's just one color. But you were hoping to get the ones that were the multi-layer colors because you could sell those a lot more.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
What about remember the No Fear dude?
Yeah.
With, like, the eyes or whatever. Like,
it was wasn't it the Mad Eyes with I didn't make those, but I know people did. But yeah, that's what we would do. That's how we made money back then. And like the sticker teacher, his name was Mr. Harrington. He didn't care. We had video games installed on all those computers, like Doom, Duke
I remember
Nukem.
Doom.
Yeah, the original Doom, not the like it was Doom. We had Warcraft One. We had a game called Marathon, and like we had all these games that were and because back then teachers weren't as knowledgeable as computers as we were. Now it's kind of caught up to where
Hmm.
whatever. But yeah, we'd sell stickers and he had candy, and basically we would sell the stickers, and then it would basically be like, all right, Evan, here's your sticker, Mr. Harrington, candy, right? So yeah, it was like a I don't know, was it a Ponzi scheme, something like that? Because he knew what we were doing. We were
Right.
supposed to be making those stickers for grades, so we'd get a grade and be like, here you go,
Hey, if I was your teacher, if I was, what's his name, Mr.
Mr.
Harrington?
Harrington,
If I was him, I'd say, hey, look at these boys taking initiative. They learned
entrepreneur.
a skill, and they're out there hustling it. I
Yeah.
love that. That's better than what his curriculum probably had him doing for y'all.
Well, here's the problem: is he didn't care, right?
Yeah.
And he ultimately got busted because a student walked past his computer and he was watching things he was not supposed to. Yeah.
Hey, nobody likes a snitch.
I wasn't me. I didn't do it. All I know is Harrington was there one time, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. We're like, what happened? They're like,
Kind of a wild place to partake in something like that.
well, I mean, this was back in 97, 98, 99, where, you know,
It was a little more innocent back then.
it
Still,
was, what probably happened is he probably clicked on a picture and it takes like 30 minutes for a picture to come up. So he walked away from his computer, came back, or who knows, because things weren't click and appear like they are now, right?
oh, trust me, I remember.
No. Yeah. So, but anyways, so back to you not graduate, back to you not, what do you say? Good luck to you.
Yeah, good luck to me.
Good
Yeah,
luck to you. So,
yeah.
like, as far as like the way that I have gotten to know you is like you started coming to Second Mile. What
Hmm.
about?
Actually, I think like March of last year
Yeah.
is
So,
really when I was started attending regularly by myself.
because was it Dallas started attending right around the same time that you did? Then
Is
because
that right?
yeah, because I met him at a men's meeting because I do the men's prayer breakfast. Like he showed up there, and then I was like, "Hey," I introduced myself, and then boom, we were friends from there because music. I'm gonna have him on here at some point.
Yeah.
Like music,
Oh,
movies,
he's
all
a
this.
great guy to
Yeah.
talk to.
So I remember meeting him in March or maybe
Hmm.
at the end of February or at the beginning of February. But so they started coming around the same time you did.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I had it in my head that y'all were like these longtime buds or something, but wow. Okay.
Yeah, so he's coming there about the same time you did, but
Hmm.
I don't even remember how I became aware of you probably through Chris, something like that. But ever since like we started doing the hangout thing, like it's been.
Hmm.
But like, how did you get to Second Mile?
Yeah. So at the time, I was married, and as a married couple, we were going to a super mega church
Mm.
with a now known controversial, pastor.
Hmm.
We won't drop any names, but y'all can put the pieces
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Obviously, I was not a fan of going somewhere at a satellite
yeah,
location and watching a dude on a big screen TV. It was a weird concept to me that I'm still not a fan of.
yeah.
I don't know what difference it makes whether your pastor's in the flesh in front of you or whatever. It makes a difference to me,
I
and
think it's very important.
yeah.
I do.
Not only that, but when you walk into a church and there's like a Starbucks in there
Yeah,
and stuff, I'm like, this is a lucrative business at this point. This isn't a church anymore.
right.
It's a tax exempt, awesome business for whoever's running this. But uh, so I was not a fan, and I was adamant that I wanted to try a small church. She wanted to attend church with her family, and I was like, okay, that's its own deal. But so I played along for a while, and also very new to my faith,
Right.
right? So we agreed to try Second Mile. I immediately loved it. Um, with PT's sermons and his the way that he doesn't sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
It's conviction out of the Bible and saying things like you should feel convicted
Right.
and things like that. And mostly, other than that, it was the community there. I mean, as you know, we both know it's a beautiful community there. That as soon as I went in there, when I was married, and with our daughter, um, open arms. Everybody's really friendly. We didn't even have a chance to go sit down before we were approached 4 or 5 times by
But
people.
just Michelle.
Yeah, yeah, super excited. And it was really nice. It was a warm welcome. I really enjoyed the service. It was very genuine feeling. And shortly after that, as life would have it, I'm no longer married. I'm divorced, and came back to the church as a single man, really halfway expecting like some gossip or and I walk in like, oh, where's dude's wife or
Yeah.
whatever. None of that happened, and if it did, it was completely, you know, unknown by me. And matter of fact, my experience was quite the opposite. Everybody said, "We're so glad you're back. Oh, you brought your kiddo. Like that's one. Everyone was really happy." And then shortly after that, y'all had befriended me, Chris and um, Kelsey,
Yeah.
another big name there. Um, y'all had befriended me, and then shortly after that, brought up the idea of doing the men's group, and so, I don't know how long we've been doing that now.
It's been
Almost 6 or 8 months, maybe.
it's been close to that because so we started, and I know you know this, but I'm just talking in general.
Yeah.
Like it started out as me, Chris, and Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
We were just meeting up for Taco Tuesday, right?
That's what. Yeah.
And then Chris invited, I believe, you
Mm-hmm.
and Mike, because I think when you came back,
Mm-hmm.
Mike had just got saved,
Right.
and so we're like, okay, I think that's probably when I became aware of you, is when Chris was like, hey, we got these two guys, they need help with discipleship, something like that. So then y'all started showing up, and then Benjamin, and then there was that time where PT took a picture, and then selfie, and then that kind of launched, like unofficially launched a secondary men's group, at the church. So I think and it was, I remember it being cold
Mm-hmm.
because when you took off on your bike, I'm like, how is he not freezing his buns off? But it is what it is because I don't understand motorcycles. But yeah, but yeah, so it's been close to a year now,
Yeah.
and it's
I want to say it was probably. I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe it was like fall of last year. Maybe we're coming up on a. That does sound about right. That
yeah.
it was starting to get cold.
Yeah, because Fred and I, we had just started coming back from, because Fred took a year hiatus from Fire Resistant, and we just started getting everything going when this started coming together. And Fred's like, I want to be a part of this, right? So we went from being on like a year long hiatus to streaming to being like, all right, guys, every other Monday we're not going to be there anymore because the Fire Resistant is important, but I think what we're doing now is still, and I wouldn't say more important because both of them are ministries and they both deal with people, but like there's the being able to just like, you need prayer, let's just put our hands on your shoulders and just because there's a reason why the Bible tells us to gather together, right?
Right.
Because like just being able to be around each other's presence is I think
Right.
is a good thing. So but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But
Oh,
like
me too.
as far as like your journey though, like not so much anything outside of, I don't want to go to anything as far as personal goes, but like because I remember when you told me how you got saved, like you
Mm-hmm.
went on a journey to disprove God, right? So
Essentially, yeah.
like nothing outside of, you get what I'm saying? Like I don't want to go
No, yeah, no.
anywhere else other than that. But like when you sat down to be like, all right, there's no God. here's step one for Evan disproving God. Like, what was step one for that?
Well, it was. So I guess to start out, I guess I could kind of condense the whole story. So I did grow up in church. My parents were very involved at a Southern Baptist church. Wednesday nights, a couple nights a week at the church, whatever. They were on the praise team. It
Oh,
was
wow.
constant, the whole growing up in the church thing. As a kid growing into teenager, kind of in my teenage years, obviously went through a really long rebellious stint for like, I don't know, 15 years or whatever. Like
There's,
really just got maybe changed my game up in like the last
yeah,
couple years type
yeah,
thing. But anyhow, very rebellious, and I always had questions and always felt like they were sort of dismissed. And then I would see the human element in the church and be like, these guys are a bunch of phonies.
yeah,
And I guess now they have a term for that. They call it like church hurt or whatever,
yeah.
right? Where I can see the mask that everyone puts on, and then immediately I'm like, what's the point? These people are phony, and which led me to be really just sort of critical of the whole thing. And so essentially, like most agnostics, your view is really skewed, and it's, well, people are scared that their life doesn't mean anything and that this is all for nothing, and so they're going to fabricate something to help them feel better about being on a giant rock flying thousands of miles an hour through space with no,
Hurling out of control.
right. And then I guess the way that God works is, I set out to disprove my then wife, and she kind of, and I said, well, I remember making the agreement of, okay, well, I'm going to present some things to you that go against what you believe, but I need you to have an open mind that you're asking me to have at the same time, right? And so I'll give it to her. She did play along, and um, and I suppose my first order of business was to attack the authenticity of the Bible,
Yeah.
which, as you know, I ended up hitting a
Uh,
brick
uh,
wall, right?
it's made of steel.
Yeah, yeah. So, in doing my due diligence and my research, historically, I used to think that, oh, well, this part of the Bible or this book in the New Testament was, written at this time, and then like 600 years later, this account comes up, and I'm like, oh, there's all kind of holes in it. Well, turns out, and I welcome you to do your own research, there are no holes,
Yep.
and it kind of meshes together perfectly. So much so that the most stubborn dude had to eat a double crow burger and and say, okay, I tap out, and essentially was, and this is super condensed, right? This is
Yeah,
over
yeah,
like
yeah.
several months, but it essentially was to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to explore the truth then. So I made it this far and realized that, like, okay, most every agnostic argument is kind of null and void,
Right.
and usually based on some sort of misunderstanding of the text or something like that. But once you get to that point, and then you're like, okay, instead of actually picking up the Bible and reading it, I still was wanting to find validation, or I don't know what I was doing, but I was wanting to read about people who kind of were on the same journey that I had, that had already finished it, or etc. So I was reading on both sides. And the one book that really changed it for me, and I had to read it a couple times because C.S. Lewis is a very smart man,
Yeah.
and I'm not a smart man.
I know what love is.
I had to read that sucker 2 times
Yeah.
because I didn't get it the first time. I thought I was reading Chinese or something.
Maybe you were.
Well, but so it ends
What was
up,
the book?
it's Mere Christianity.
So I want to make sure.
Yeah, we got to plug that.
Gonna throw that
So
out there.
all of you who are lost,
Searching.
searching, and yeah, lost and searching, I highly recommend that one,
Yeah.
because he takes the logic in its purest form, and there are so many evangelical books that have been written stemmed off of these ideas. And just to sort of summarize it, you have a dude who is an Ivy League rock star amongst some of the greatest minds in the world, and essentially it's him and a very he name drops him in the book, but he's a brilliant mind who is an agnostic, and you have a brilliant mind who is faith based and believes in God, and so they kind of clash, and so he kind of walks through his logic that he explains to this man, and when he breaks everything down, you're like, holy crap, like it all kind of does make sense.
Yeah.
And I wish I was prepared with more examples from the book to show you, but essentially, so I turned into that, and then it got to the point where I was like, okay, God, I now see that there's a strong possibility that you exist. I'm ready to admit that, right? But I'm not quite done yet. I want
Yeah.
you to show me something, right? Because
Like
you're my
like Gideon, right?
Right. Yeah, show me something because you owe that to me for whatever reason, right? Hilarious. Well, I prayed that prayer, and 30 seconds later, I get a text from a dude also named Evan who lives on the other side of the country in North Carolina. And the dude texts me out of the blue. Now, to preface this, we were acquaintances and had done business and had shared hobbies, and through social media had we knew each other.
Yeah.
In the industry that we worked in with small engines and stuff, we were both on the same page, so we knew each other, but it wasn't a hey, I'm gonna text and see what's up with my boy
Yeah.
or whatever.
Gonna go hang out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or small talk in direct messages wasn't a thing between us, right? So he hits me up out of the blue after I prayed this prayer. 30 seconds to a minute later, enough to where I took my phone and went, "Oh crap," because now I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's I verbatim what I said to God that day was, show me something that I cannot discredit or refute. Something that is like so personal poke
Yeah.
that it's like, okay, I give in. And by golly, he did. And he texted me out of the blue, said, hey, man, I just got it on my heart to talk to you about this, that, and the other. And I was like, dude, shut up. I literally just asked for a figurative brick to land on my head because I'm clearly not getting it. And lo and behold, and dude goes, well, I guess I'm your brick. And it was like, oh, I got talking about it. I kind of get my
Goosebumps, yeah.
man, because it was like that. And it was like, dang. It was almost where God's like, I am so tired of this thing. Like, just what more do you need? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Apparently you're not getting it, so here you go, bud. And
Yeah.
that's exactly how it happened. And I believe holding up my end of the bargain there was, if you show me something like that, I'm in. And so at that point, I was in.
It is time for you to go to bed. Dexter, go to your room until
Alexa,
9 p.m.
stop. There it was. The kids were like, turn that off. And I'm like, I think it's part of the show now. I think it's part of.
Keep it.
Yeah, keep it on there. See, I told you it comes on 8 o'clock. So now we know it's 8 o'clock. But anyways, you were saying he threw a ton of bricks, and you're like, you said that your end of the deal was.
That I would, that I would pursue it.
Yeah.
And then so that's what I did. And then shortly thereafter, became a Christian. I'd been saved and earlier in life as a kid. To be honest with you, probably more peer pressure
Yeah.
to do
Well,
so, being raised in the church than
Yeah,
anything.
so I think that one of the biggest things that Fred and I talk about on the show, and even when I talk, whenever I get a chance to preach or speak publicly or something like that when it comes to things of God, is in Matthew 7:21 through 23. That's the verse where Jesus said, on that day, many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, did I not do this in your name? So like what you're describing, right, is the same thing that I went through, right? Where like you think that you're saved, right? But you have a potential understanding of who God is, what He did on the cross, but you don't truly accept it, right? There's the understanding, and then there's the actual conversion.
Right.
So, like you growing up in the church, it's like, yeah, Jesus, yeah, God, whatever, right? But then there's the moment where the Holy Spirit convicts you, and you actually have the conversion. And I think that you growing up, probably not. Hopefully, this isn't disrespectful, but hopefully not. I'm probably not saved. But then when you
Right.
had that moment, that's when the Holy Spirit said, "Deal." Right? When you said, "Show me something," Holy Spirit, God went, "Deal." And then when that text went, you're like, "Okay, nothing will ever sway me from the truth of what Jesus did on the cross from this point going forward," because like there's a knowledge that will get you into hell, and then there's the conversion knowledge that saves you and that you start moving forward in a totally different direction. And that's what happened to me. Like I walked the aisle whenever I was like 6, 7, right? And then I went to this play called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames, and I went there to watch a play. I did not go there to get saved.
Yeah, the record was clear.
Right, I had all of this head knowledge of being in church my entire life. So I was like, hey, the guy's name was Eric. I was like, Eric, what was a buddy? I was, hey, I'm going to Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames. You want to come with me? Sure. Get in the car, boom, go. Then like right in the middle. So do you know? Have you ever heard of Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames?
I think you
So
mentioned something about it before.
So premise of it is it's a bunch of short stories played out on a play by a church, and each scenario somebody dies, and when they die, they go into eternity, and they go up and they stand. A door opens, and either Jesus comes out or Satan comes out and takes you to hell. So like there was a moment where like God was like thumping me on the head per se, and it's like when that guy's being drugged to hell, he's like, "That's you. Now what are you gonna do about it?" So like, dude, it was just like I remember just like it was about halfway through the play where it was just like the tears, right, just started following me because I knew like all things prior to that moment were fake, all the way up until this moment where I was like, okay, yeah, I truly understand what Jesus did on the cross and the reason why he had to do it, and that was
I think
done.
that's what's so awesome about God too is everybody's story is so personally theirs.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now there's coincidences and things like that, or a lot of the same things, but it's a very personal poke. You know what I mean? When the Holy Spirit does.
Yeah.
And I've heard it said before that God will teach you the same lesson over and over again until you get it. And
Yeah.
it's like, dude, he worked on me for a long time. But you think about
Yeah.
it though, in the big scheme of things, right? And that's how I like to look at it. And my experiences leading up to that, and even in when I was quite literally making fun of Christianity and saying just really vulgar things about it and whatever, and stuff that I would be absolutely embarrassed of now. But like, it had to be that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it means nothing until I got it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Have
So
you
I
have you
just
ever
think
heard
it's-
have you ever heard of a preacher named Paul Washer?
No, I
It's a
haven't.
very similar story. Highly intelligent dude. Used to just love making Christians look dumb until he got converted. And he's a mighty warrior of God. And the thing that you were just talking about reminded me of a buddy of mine talking about refiner's fire. So like when you're making a sword, you stick it in the heat to do what? To get all the impurities to
Right,
come
to
out of
burn
the
it all
metal.
out.
So like God sticks you in the fire, and you're stubborn. You don't want to let go of the impurities. He takes you out. Yep, still got it right back in, right back in there, to put you through trials to make you rely on Him. So like I totally get it, man. I do. But as far as like that that road that you went down to get here, like it's an amazing story. Like every miracle of a person that has gotten saved is a phenomenal story, and it's very personal, right?
Right.
There's someone that shares a similar story to you and a story similar to
Or
me,
completely different.
completely opposite, right? Some guy, like the thief on the cross, right? He lived a life that got him on the cross, and then right before his end, he was like, "Hey, that guy's innocent," right? So that's why I love telling stories, and I'm glad that you told it, just because it's like, yeah, people need to know that, like, it's not just you're raised in church, right? It's some people walk away. There was a period of time where I walked away too. Um, like when I walked away, it was more like rebellion on what I thought should have happened with my life, because I had knocked up my high school girlfriend. We weren't together, and I was like, "What is going on with my life?" Right? Type deal where it was just like, yeah, I mean, that was all 100% like my fault, right? So, but I was just like, "What am I doing with my life?" Okay, I'm just gonna go this direction, and then God was like, "Here is a woman that you need to get to know," and then I was like, "Okay, straight and narrow from that point." So, but yeah,
This time is perfect. That's another thing that you realize is when you finally accept it and are conscious of it, right?
hmm
You're like, dang. I mean, just because something doesn't happen for you when you think it should happen, or maybe your life doesn't look like what it should look like. You're like, okay, well, where are you getting? Whose plan are you drawing from?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
oh, is it supposed? What do you mean it's supposed to be? Like, explain how you think it's supposed to be any certain way. You
Well, it's
know what
like
I mean?
people saying, well, they feel like they have to have kids. Why? Kids are great, but like they're not for everybody,
Yeah.
right? So like, don't let people pressure you into thinking that you have to go down this path, right? But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, so like your love for motorcycles. Like, when did that happen?
Mm, well, I will say that I have been a huge fan of the internal combustion engine period
Yeah.
in all forms since I can remember. Being a little like toddler into cars and whatever. Always had an infatuation with going fast
Mm.
and loud noises and all that. I don't know. It's a very natural thing for me. I didn't have dirt bikes or anything like that growing up, and it's something that I always wanted. And I remember there was a time when mom said I could get a dirt bike, but I had to buy it on my own, right? And I said, "You're on," or whatever.
Deal.
Yeah, yeah. So I had cleaned out all the couch cushions and did whatever, and had filled up this jar with odds and ends, coins, and dollar bills out of the bottom of the dryer and whatever, right? And I remember Coinstar had just came to town, like it was like brand new, and they had one at the Kroger's up the street, and so I'm gonna go check where I'm at or whatever, you know what I mean? And dirt bike prices back then, like when you get into a little pit bike for, it's still gonna be over $1,000.
No, so you weren't even close.
Not even close, dude. I remember like getting my little Coinstar receipt, and it was like 48.50, and I'm like, oh
And
no.
and we took 20 of it for counting it for you.
Yeah. So I remember just feeling so defeated. But I lived like vicariously through my other friends that had them, and honestly, it's a God thing that I probably didn't have one as a child. Just what if I paralyzed myself back then, and I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to have as much fun as I'm having now. You never know, right? Everything does happen for a reason.
So,
But
so
I'd
what
say
was?
it really started like we used to. My buddy Zach had his dad was a motorcycle guy. He collected Harley Davidsons, and so he had mini bikes and dirt bikes and stuff like that, four wheelers. And so we always played over at his house, and he had this bar ditch behind the house, and we would jump the dirt bikes and stuff over them, and just really kind of developed a love for it back then, and really never had got into it until I was old enough to get one for myself.
Yeah.
And I'd rode other people's bikes and etc. But and I had some experience with it, but my first experience with the Harley Davidson was when I bought one and from the dealer and left the dealer with it. Like that was the first time I'd ever rode something like that is after I bought it. Think about that for a second, how
Wow.
crazy that is.
That
Yeah.
was going to be my question. Like, when was the first motorcycle you ever purchased?
That was the one, and I left on it, and it was a 103 uh, cubic inch motor, like a big motor on
You,
like the
you,
second
you
smallest
just
frame they
you
made.
just spoke Spanish to me. I
Well,
don't know what that means.
big motor, small
Yeah.
frame, power to weight ratio. It goes fast, right?
Yeah. How long ago was that?
Oh, I don't know, like probably. It was before my daughter was born, so probably 7, 8 years ago.
Okay, so you were like in your mid,
I was in my
you're in your
20s.
20s, mid to late 20s when you first bought your first bike.
Yeah, that was mine, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and I rode that thing for a while, for a long while. But yeah, it was my first time to ever ride something like that. And I got out. I left the dealership because they'll sell you whatever, dude. They don't care.
Right.
Once you sign and they got, like
You're
the
pre-approved.
contract's
Boom.
done,
Yeah.
they don't really care if you make it out of the parking lot, really. But uh, I made it all the way home. But whenever I got out onto like Harwood, I was going across where like Harwood and 26 are, and where they intersect. And I remember the light had turned yellow, and I was like, I can make it or whatever. And I goosed it, and when I did, my butt slid off the seat and onto the back fender, and I was like, oh, it was like more power than I was used to. You know what I mean? And I literally had bugs in my teeth when I got home from smiling so big, dude. It was the best fun.
Hey,
Just that adrenaline of, oh my god, dude,
Yeah.
what have you done? But this is so awesome at the same time.
Yeah.
And
So-
don't die and all that going on in your head at the same time. But it was like exhilarating. You know what I mean?
So you're sitting on the bike. You're used to a certain power level, and then you hit it to make it through the light, and it's so powerful that like, is it what like when you do that? Are you having to both pull like on the handlebars and push yourself?
Well, you're
'Cause
holding on to the
'cause-
handlebars.
Yeah, but your butt went that way.
Oh yeah.
How do you stop from? That's what I'm saying. Like
Your arms being there stop you at a certain point, but my butt
Right.
was on the fender. Like there's nothing on the way the bike was set up. There was nothing on the back seat, so it was like low profile seat fender. So like it was kind of easy to goose it and not be ready
Yeah.
and not know what to expect and have your butt slide back. Of course, after that initial time,
Yeah.
you grip the bike a little hard. You know what you're about to get into. So, but my first rodeo,
Yeah.
I had no
See,
idea it
that's
could
what I was.
throw me back.
That's
like
what I
that.
was meaning. Like when you hit it, right? Mm-hmm. Are you? You said do you clamp with your legs, or do you like
you kinda-
core it, or do you use your core to
Kinda
like
use your
keep that
core,
butt down?
Yeah,
You're like, "Urgh."
yeah, you kind of use your core.
Okay, okay, that's
And
what I was
then-
wondering because when you said because again, I have zero experience riding
Right.
motorcycles. So when you said you hit the gas and your butt slid off, I was like, how does that not happen every single time? Because again, zero knowledge about bikes.
Yeah,
so-
when you're not ready. Yeah,
Yeah.
You didn't know that was going to happen. And obviously getting a better seat helps when you're
Yeah.
gonna give it all the beans like that. Having something with a little more of a backstop there
Mm-hmm.
for your crack, I guess. But
'Cause
and I ended up, I did get another seat for it eventually. But that was my first experience with like like a Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
And so I was obviously hooked after that. And most people have the exact same story, by the way.
where they hit it and they're like, oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah, there's something different about it. Like, I mean, obviously, they're not the best made motorcycles out there. They're actually on really the bottom of that conversation.
Really?
Yeah, they're not really known to be reliable. They're not anything, but there's something about like, and actually, like Harley makes their crankshafts unbalanced on purpose, so that like if next time you see me at a red light, look at my bike. the motor is literally jostling inside of the frame. Like it is literally shaking.
Right. I thought all bikes
That's
did
all
that.
part of no. That is a very specific Harley Davidson thing that they do. That's kind of their shtick, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. I thought all
And
bikes did that. Where it's like blum blum
no,
blum 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 blum.
no.
No,
I
that's
mean, they do. So there's other imitators,
oh, okay.
right? But like a Honda makes beautiful motorcycle noises, and you don't ever have to work on it, and it just sits there waiting to run, and it'll never let you down. But it's not the same.
Right, right,
It's
right.
not.
And so, do you think when you say it's not the same, do you think that because Hondas aren't American made, do you think that technically Harley's not American made anymore?
No.
They started out American made. Do you think that that's where the
I think there's
lore of it?
yes, and
Okay.
that's the word that I would use exactly. The lore is like it's Chevrolet, apple pie, baseball, and Harley Davidson, right? It's quintessential American things.
Yeah.
They're ridiculously loud. You know, they're loud, proud, and they had a reputation, right? And that reputation was kind of ruined for a little while in the 70s and 80s with the AMF thing. The people that brought you the bowling pins also bought Harley Davidson for a short amount of time, and they put out absolute trash bikes for a little while. So it really kind of ruined their reputation there for a little while. But it's sort of come back, and the whole thing is like it didn't ever really destroy it. It's
Yeah.
still very much like Easy Rider magazine, just the Hollywood aspect of Harley Davidson motorcycles, etc. But the rumble that you feel when you twist the throttle, when you grab the clutch and put it in first gear, and it's that crunk, like it's in there. You know what I mean? It's just a completely different experience than anything else.
So have you? I'm sure you probably have, but have you ridden or rode or owned one of those Hondas, the ones that go like 100 miles an hour in like 2 seconds?
No, I've ridden sport bikes before.
Because isn't that what Fred has? Fred has got. Doesn't he have a Honda, a Ninja, or something like that?
Old man Fred?
Yeah, he's got.
I'm sorry for calling you old man Fred.
He knows he's old. He knows he's old, but he's got like a red bike that he always wanted, but I don't think it's.
No, I want to say that that's a Yamaha sport touring
Okay.
bike. So essentially, it's got all the go fast stuff of a sport bike, but it's made for more touring.
Okay.
So it's like a touring hot rod, or maybe it's a sport bike for old men. I don't know.
Because his Harley that he has, he's only gotten recently.
Right.
That's within like the past I think 3 years that he has got that old. I think it was like 1986 one that always makes everybody's eyebrows go and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna put it back. And you every time you talk to him, he's always got it apart.
Yeah.
Tweaking something else. I'm just like,
Last time I talked to him, he said he's done with it. He's selling it.
oh, okay. He's finally gonna sell it.
Well, he said he got. I think he finished whatever was going on with the primary. Maybe maybe he didn't. I can't remember. But last time I talked to him about that bike, he was wanting to sell it.
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, you know anyone wants an '86 Evo?" I was like, "Oh, probably, yeah."
Yeah. Well, all I know is at one point he had 3 bikes, and one of them he really wanted. I know it was red because he showed it to me, like a picture of it. He said, "This is what I'm looking for. I'm going up to," I think he went up to like Oklahoma because he found one in some shop, and then he bought it, and then he was all smiles, and
Yeah.
he can't drive it to where we stream now because it's a little bit of a dangerous area.
Oh.
So, but when we streamed over here at Trinity, it was he would ride his bike pretty frequently, and I just don't know what it is because I don't know any of the bikes.
I don't remember exactly what he told me. I think I want to say that I'm almost positive it's a Yamaha sport touring bike,
Yeah.
but it's a sweet ride. I have never had a sport bike. I've ridden them. They're fun. For any extended period of time, being that I'm a chubby dude, they're not that fun for longer rides because how you sit on them, it puts a lot of pressure on your wrists and all that. And
That makes
it's
sense.
just not only that, but like one of those things that it'd be really hard to like not get into it all the time. You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
It's
the
so
thing-
tempting, right?
Well, the thing is, the way I look at it is, like, let's say this is a proper definition, you can tell me. So, like, those sport bikes are made to get you from home to work. The bike that you're talking about touring is you can hop on it, like you said, on a Saturday and then just leave and then come back.
You could
Is
do it
that
on any of them. One's made for comfort. The other one is made for really an adaptation of a race bike that is obtainable by the general public,
okay.
essentially. So you have speed enthusiasts of all kinds. So there's tons of guys who buy a bike like that and will be an idiot on the road. But there's even more guys who will buy a bike like that, have the correct gear, the leathers, everything, and they do what's called track days, where you're able to rent some time at an actual closed road course and hone your actual riding skills that way. And those dudes I have nothing but respect for, because those guys can ride,
Yeah.
and it don't matter what it is, they can ride it, and well, you know
So,
what I mean?
yeah. So you bought your first bike, let's say mid to late 20s.
Yeah, mid
Kept that
20s.
kept that bike all the way up until this one that you just bought, or was there one in between, or two in between?
There's been a lot actually. So I I had that bike up until my son was going to be born, and then kind of felt the pressure to like sell that because I'm having a son. And then after I sold it, like a week later, depression hit,
Yeah.
and
Seller's remorse.
oh, big time. But what was cool about it, I sort of had the seller's remorse, but not really, because that triggered like 6 months of awesome for me, because I then got really into trading. So how it happened was me and Preston swapped bikes. He got my old Dyna, the Harley, and I got in return a bike that he had built, which was a CRF 110, which is a kid's pit bike, and a Honda Grom, and he put them together and made a street legal pit bike. And then we slapped a license plate off like a WR250 Yamaha. It wasn't
Real or
even
fake?
super.
Real or fake?
It was real
Oh, okay.
for a different bike, but not supposed to be
Right.
on that bike. But as long as you had a plate on it, the police will look at your plate and be like, he's got a plate, leave him alone, type
Yeah.
thing. Or they're not going to give you a second look, really. So I had that, which is really cool. And because essentially it takes $2,000-$3,000 bikes put together to make that. So rode the crap out of that for a little while. Wasn't very practical. It was one of those like, it's cooler, it sounds cooler than it is type thing. But I got that in a pit bike, and then I sold this, traded this, and that started like I had bought, a Grom, and then I had several other, bikes in between. But it started like a trading deal, and then I got to the 1999 Fat Boy Harley, and so I went full circle. I had fun with like a bunch of different bikes, and then went back
Yeah.
and got another Harley, and had that for a while. And me and Evelyn worked on that. My daughter and I kind of played with that in the garage. And when I got it, it was all bare metal, and then I rusted it and made it look all like you dug it up from Lake Worth or something. But it was cool, man.
Yeah.
I wish we could put a picture up for y'all to see, because I was really proud of it. But it wasn't a very practical bike, and I wanted something that I could go on spontaneous adventures with. And I really liked the Road King, so I ended up getting the Road King, and then eventually selling the other one, because you don't really. I've been trying to solve this problem forever, but I can only ride one bike at a time.
Yeah. I mean, there is that video in Jean-Claude Van Damme on two motorcycles. You could do that, right?
But me in that scenario without going to the hospital
yeah,
just
that's
isn't
true. I
in the
mean,
deck
can
of
you do the
cards.
splits across them?
I can't do the
No,
splits if you had a gun pointed at me, buddy.
neither can I if it makes you feel better.
Yeah, you'd have to put me down. I can't do it. But yeah, so that's the problem. You can only ride one of them at a time.
Yeah.
So, and one was getting a whole lot more use than the other. So I ended up just selling that one and kind of got the stable where I want now. But I'm never really done. I'm
Yeah.
always scheming.
Are you?
I'm always
Even with the
scheming.
one that you have now?
Always, dude.
I mean, because ever since you got it,
Yeah.
you've had this extra smile on your face. So like you could be having a bad day, and
I'm
all of a
in
sudden
love, man. It's a
you
beautiful
you
thing.
talked about Tuesday or Monday when we got together. You were like, Saturday I just hopped on the bike and nobody was looking for me, so I took off. And like in my brain, I was thinking like, what does that even mean, right? Because like for one, there's always somebody looking for me somewhere
Right,
around here.
right,
But
right.
like just taking off, I know you had a mission, but like we're not going to go there. But like you just took off, and like the way I thought about it was because for me personally, like I drive a Prius, right?
You
I'm a,
can go anywhere
I'm,
on
oh yeah, yeah,
$5.
yeah. Oh no, it's real estate. I'm a realtor, so it's practical,
Sure.
right? But hopping on a bike with the wind going through all of you and just taking off for like you said that the ride was what, like 4 hours there and 4 hours
3 hours one way.
yeah, and just thinking about that, right? I'm never gonna do it, by the way. But like hearing that story, like I was like,
Never
you know
say
what?
never.
I was like, motorcycle kind of seems not bad when there's nobody around, because for me personally, like when you're driving around and you see these like many mistakes that people make on the road, like if I'm driving 30 miles an hour and somebody makes a mini mistake and they hit my bumper or whatever, then it's just like her, right? Because I don't know, like 6 or 7 months ago, there was a huge truck that was going down this roundabout, and he decided, you know what, I want to come over in your lane. So he actually hit me, and he's pulled over, and we exchanged information, all that sort of stuff. But like, I say that, and I'm like, if I was riding the bike and he just decided he wanted in my lane, like, what happens to me, right? So
Yeah.
I in
I
my
can tell
brain,
you.
yeah, in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's just the way my brain works. Like you have, your mind is, you know, more open than mine is, which is a good thing because you can just hop on a motorcycle if the weather's good and go enjoy it. Whereas if I were to jump on the motorcycle, I probably wouldn't enjoy it just because like if there's a car around me, I'm like, are they playing on? Like my brain is gonna be like, are they playing on their phones? Do I have to worry about it?
Oh,
Do I need
yes,
to
they
slow
are.
down?
To answer
Yeah,
your
yeah,
question,
yeah,
they
yeah.
are.
Because guess what? I'm playing on my phone. I'm driving my Prius, right? But no, but it's just one of those things where it's like my brain, because of the way that, if he, I don't know if he listens to this, but just the way my dad is. My dad is a worrier, right? So like for whatever reason, I can't get over that. Fred just wants to slap me around and be like, "Get that out of there." Bible says, "Worry not." I'm like, well,
Says it a lot.
yeah, it says it not or a lot, and I'm just like, "Ugh," but at some point maybe, but also the gear thing is something that I would have to figure out too.
Can you drive a standard?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Then that means no. I would destroy
Well,
everybody.
no, no, it's definitely not. That doesn't mean anything. It just means you're gonna be easier to teach.
Oh.
I with my Honda Grom, I could teach anybody and their grandma how to ride a motorcycle in a parking lot in about give me 10 minutes.
Yeah. So my mom took me in an old uh, Tacoma truck, like a 80s or 90s. It was when they were scared.
T100.
It was when they were square, and because that's what we had, or my mom had, or whatever. I don't know why we had that truck, but she took me one time, and like once I got out of first gear, then
You're fine.
I was good. But it was getting out of first gear was a problem, and she only took me one time. But then how many cars are standard anymore?
Yeah, they call that well, funny enough, I'm a millennial, but they call it a millennial anti-theft device now.
Do they really?
Yeah, I've seen
Well,
that.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to
Well,
drive it either. But
no, I mean, I'm very glad that I learned.
yeah,
But I would have learned anyways eventually. But I was probably 14, and my brother had a '93 Ford Ranger 5-speed, and that's what I learned how to drive in, which is a great truck to learn in. But I don't know. For some reason, if I was born with any natural ability, I would say my motor skills are probably my most natural ability.
so does that mean that you're insanely good at Guitar Hero?
No, it doesn't mean that. I did give it a whole. I did give it a whole summer with my buddy Colin, and we were certified shredders at the end of that summer. But
I could only do, what is it, where you could, like, as soon as the pinky had to go, I think, to the blue, I was done. I could.
Gink, gink,
Yeah, yeah,
gink, gink. Yeah, whatever. No, that was a great game, but no, like my mom will tell you, um, no one ever taught me how to drive. I think I learned on like Grand Theft Auto or something. I don't know, but
How many people have you run over?
oh,
Because
countless.
if you learned how to just on GTA,
Oh yeah, there ain't no rules.
yeah,
No, no, but I mean, I was like 14, 15, and my mom was never worried about me driving. She's like,
yeah,
as soon as I was old enough to drive, she was a passenger princess from that day forward.
really,
Yeah. Oh yeah. And highways, whatever. Like I so much so that when I was actually old enough to go to driver's ed, she just filled it all out
hmm
and turned it in, and I got my license. I had to go take the written test,
yeah,
but like she totally filled out everything else. And like he's a better driver than me is essentially her point. But I don't know. I've just always been naturally able to drive. And then whenever I started driving 18 wheelers, I realized that I was pretty good at that too, and I can put a trailer anywhere you want it, and I love that challenge. You know what I mean? Like backing trailers up is really fun to me.
yeah. I just learned that about you. I didn't know that you drove 18 wheelers.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
like you
I did
have.
that for a year.
So not only do you ride bikes, which you see the worst in people when they drive,
Yeah.
but you drove 18
Oh, you see
wheeler
even
worse,
worse
yeah,
as an 18-wheeler driver for
because
sure.
you don't know if they're cutting you off because
And you
they
have like an elevated view of everything.
yeah, and you don't know if somebody is cutting you off because they're going to
Right.
slam on their brakes and
Oh,
try to get a
all the
payday
time.
off of you. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's actually a really similar dynamic. On a bike, they don't see you.
yeah,
You assume they don't see you because they most likely don't. And in an 18-wheeler, they see you, but they don't care.
all right.
They assume you're going to get out of their way, or what, or that they, no matter what, if an 18-wheeler is involved, they think that they have the right of way.
Yeah, I don't.
And the reality of that is, you pull in front of somebody hauling 40,000 pounds or whatever in the
Yeah,
back, they don't stop on a dime.
right.
It
So
takes several hundred feet for that to stop, actually.
so Dexter went to Florida for a choir trip. We stayed at a hotel the night before because we wanted to make sure he got to the hotel or the airport on time because it was at Love Field. So like we stayed. These two guys were sitting there in the lobby, and I just started talking to them, and we sat there and talked in the lobby. There were two guys that were 18-wheeler drivers. They were there on a job, not together, but they just happened to be. They had worked and they had crossed paths enough to where they knew who each other were, but they were there working the same event. So they were telling me about what you were just talking about, how like hauling like crates is different than
Oh,
hauling water because like when you go to turn
the
like the water
slosh effect.
exactly I was like this is the greatest conversation ever. I said I should be recording this. I was like
Not only
things that
that,
I didn't know.
another one is flatbed guys that haul those poles for like power lines or whatever, or the oil rig bits, and they haul those. When you think about it, that trailer has suspension and everything, but what they're strapping to the top of that trailer does not. It's completely rigid. And
Yeah,
they have to stop every hundred and some odd miles and check those straps.
because they move. Yeah,
Well, though, yeah, it shifts and then the wind and everything. Yeah, you have to check your straps every
yeah,
so often. But the other thing is, if you had to slam on your brakes and you're hauling poles, the momentum from that pole, you know what I mean?
your matrix.
I don't know. You might just be a shish kebab. I don't know.
So then, now that I've known you drove it for a year, so what is like? I mean, PG-13,
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we'll
PG-13.
keep it.
But
Yeah.
like, what's the craziest thing you've seen as a truck driver on the road?
Ooh. Um. Well, me and my dog Booger, who I found out on the road, he ended up being 10 years old when he died, but I found him out on the road, and he was a white German Shepherd. I found him in Cherokee Nation, Oklahoma,
Mm,
and me and him hit 44 states in a year. And I've seen all kind of crazy stuff, and really got into perspective like how small the world is, and then in a matter of a couple of days you can be on a different
yeah,
side of the country. And it's a really unique experience. I still very much love 18-wheelers. It's just living in a truck
Yeah,
is
yeah,
awful.
yeah. Well, they were talking about how the worst jobs to take is like starting in, let's say, California
Oh,
and then ending in like Colorado because you're in t-shirt and shorts. And they said many times that they would
same day, you're.
same day, like not being able to get out of the truck because it's so cold outside. They're like, hey man, you take the stuff, we'll put it there. You just got to get it. I ain't getting out or having to hop in the back and change clothes and then,
Yeah, see, that's what I would have done.
yeah,
Just hop in the back because everything you own is on that truck,
yeah.
right? Or everything that you brought with you to survive with is there. So you didn't pack a jacket. I'm gonna say you probably haven't been driving for very long. But no, I think I definitely saw some crazy things. The road is a very dangerous place.
Yeah, it's the dangerous things we do as humans.
Statistically,
Yeah,
you driving somewhere is infinitely more dangerous than
yeah,
flying or whatever. Even with how recent plane issues have been falling out of the sky and all kinds of stuff, you're still better off
yeah,
flying
yeah, yeah, yeah.
than
You are.
driving somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw in New Mexico uh, a family in a suburban had hit a full grown like elk and basically head on collision.
and the
And
elk won.
yeah, elk versus suburban. When I got through it after, the traffic or whatever, there was a bunch of white body bags on the side of the road. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. When I said crazy things, I meant like not so much.
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that is pretty crazy. But I was just thinking like people, when I think of crazy stuff on the road, I'm thinking like, you think of a woman like doing her makeup while playing on her phone
I don't
and
know.
all that kind of stuff. Nothing.
Um,
But like,
I got one that's probably PG-13. It's pushing to 13, but so the scariest place I've ever been is Camden, New Jersey, and it was like in this industrial park, and I had spent the night inside the industrial park with the razor wire fence all the way around it or whatever. And the way I explain to folks, it's like when you see like mobster movies
yeah,
where they take the dude into like the industrial area, like by the docks, and they
yeah,
whack somebody. That's what it looked like, right? You're not far, from that. But anyways, so I slept in my truck inside the confines of
gated area,
this
right?
warehouse
Yeah.
area, and all night long you hear just like it's Iraq outside. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And and then the next morning, which is pretty normal, I'd been to Chicago a couple times and et cetera, so you're kind of used to that. And the next day, I get my load and I'm leaving. And as I'm getting ready to go, I'm looking out the gate, and there's a cop sitting there, and he's got the newspaper up over his steering wheel. And across the street is a what they call a working gal.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Shouldn't he do something? Whatever.
Not in New
Those
Jersey.
two were
Yeah.
coexisting
Yeah.
on different wavelengths. And so I got my everything squared away. I had my map pulled up and all that, and I'm off to deliver this other load. And I go out and I swing out right by the cop, and I'm waiting there, and then I hit a red light, and you're gonna take this turn, take you to the access road, and you're back on 95, and you're out of there, right? Well, I make that turn, and the cop lights me up, and I was like, "What? I literally, you just saw me leave. What could I have done for you to come pull me over?" I thought he was going to mess with me and write me up for a bunch of stuff that he was going to
Yeah.
find wrong with the trailer.
You didn't
'Cause
take care of my friend over there.
your chain is supposed to be 12 inches off the ground. It's 11 inches
Yeah.
off the ground. There's a citation for that. They do stuff like that.
Yeah.
DOT is really hard on drivers, and it's really ridiculous. But so he pulls me over, and I'm like, "What's up?" And he goes, "You've never been here before, have you?" And I said, "No, sir, I have not." And he goes, "Yeah, buddy, we don't stop at red lights over here."
Oh.
And I said, "What?" I made sure to stop at that one
Yeah.
because you're parked right there, dude. I've done a little Hollywood stop
Yeah.
every now and then, but I made sure I stopped at that one. He goes, I know. That's why I pulled you over. And I was like, so what's the deal? Why are we not stopping at lights around here? He goes, well, we have a big problem with uh, truck drivers getting hijacked over here. It's a good spot for you to get hijacked, maybe even a trip to the hospital or
Yeah.
dead. And all they got to do is hop on 95 and they gone. Because we're right by the interstate. It's actually
Yeah.
a pretty good spot if you're going to do something like that, I guess. So he goes, so this time I'll escort you to the back to the interstate. But if you ever come back here, don't do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's a
Yeah,
wild story.
I thought so.
Holy crap. Because, like, yeah. And did you ever go back? Of course not. No.
Well, it was just by chance that I
Yeah.
was there in the first place. But
Golly.
yeah,
You gotta
really,
think-
that's definitely that whole place just felt like post-apocalyptic, almost
Yeah.
like trash, blowing in the street, just very somber, like everything's kind of dead.
Yeah.
Not a real pretty place.
It's one of those things where, like, you know that there's demonic activity. And, like, when you walk into a room and you just,
You get that feeling, right?
yeah,
That heaviness on your chest or something.
for no reason at all. Like, there was, Brett's biological mother, right? Her mom, like her house that she lived in, when you walked into it, you just felt like there was just something
Oh, really?
there that was constantly. Christy even felt it too when we would go over there ever so often because sometimes we had to because of Brett. It's just like we just didn't like going in there. Like whenever I was younger, I didn't really pay attention or I don't know if you want to say didn't feel it, but like as an adult, when you become more spiritually kind of aware, when you're learning and all that sort of stuff, you walk in here, you're like, man, there's just a heaviness that should not be here. So let's burn down the house. No, I was playing.
Yeah.
But no, it was just weird. There was a lot of craziness that happened on that side of Brett's family. But back to the area that you were in, like there has to be some sort of
You would think.
demonic presence or
Oh, yeah.
something.
There's just so much crime and,
Yeah.
it's just kind of, for lack of a better term, just urban decline,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, you got to think that wasn't it? Wasn't it New Jersey? Wasn't that the heart of all of the prohibition stuff? Isn't that where all of that?
A lot of it, yeah, that whole deal there, New York, New Jersey, yeah, that
Yeah.
whole area.
Tony
The boys,
Soprano lives
the
over
boys
there.
in the Northeast they like their drinks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean everybody does, but I guess it was a real big problem there.
Oh, Tony Soprano was out of New Jersey, so we get it.
Hey, I tell you something.
Oh my gosh, did you ever watch that show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were
What's
a
the gabagool?
yeah. Where's the
Yeah.
gabagool?
Yeah.
So what did you think about the ending of the show? Did you ever see the ending of the show?
Man, I don't really remember.
You don't?
Uh-uh.
I mean, granted, I was 10 years older than you, so we had watched it basically from beginning to end. And
I'm not confident that I have chronologically
so like
watched it
the
all.
TV show ends, spoilers for anybody that doesn't watch Sopranos, is Tony is in a restaurant. He's waiting for his family to show up, and the family shows up in the restaurant one at a time, and then it makes a noise like somebody walked in the restaurant, and then screen goes black, credits.
He got whacked.
Maybe.
Oh, but it's open ended that way.
Yeah, they left it open ended where, like, because his daughter Meadow, if you remember her, Jamie Lynn Seeger, I think was her name. I think. Anyways, either way, the whole final sequence is so dumb. Like, if you just watch it, just to watch it, like his family's coming in and she's trying to park her car, right? So she's backing in and backing out, trying to park her car, whatever. It just looked like a big, huge, like, product placement for whatever the car was. Let's say it was a
Cadillac
Honda.
commercial
Yeah,
or
let's say it was a Honda because Honda paid to have that car in there. So in the final moments of the show, she's trying to park this car, and then so when the door or when you hear the
So you
rest.
feel like maybe it was just rushed to like an abrupt end and oh crap, we gotta plug all these sponsors too.
Potentially, but no. So like earlier on in the season, Bobby and Tony were talking about what they think happens when you die, and Bobby said things just go black and silent. So like there's a people have pulled from that moment where it's just him and
Like a
Bobby.
little foreshadowing.
Yeah, where so
Okay.
Tony's in the restaurant with his family, door opens, screen goes black, and maybe it wasn't Meadow that walked through the door, maybe it was the killer that killed him, and everything went black because he died.
But you get to kind of form your own conclusion.
Yeah. So I mean, some of the movies like some TV shows and movies that have built themselves
I
around.
like that.
Well, so like, did you ever see the
It gives
movie?
you no closure.
Well, did you ever see the movie Inception?
Oh yeah.
So do you remember how it ended with the spinny thing spinning, but kind of wiggle just for a little bit? Then, so it gave you the ability because they had built that from almost the first frame of the beginning of the movie. They had built this world to get you to the point where it could be an open ended ending. Sopranos was a TV show about gangsters shooting each other and dealing drugs and making money and all that sort of stuff. There wasn't
The
like
waste management business.
it needed to have a definitive ending, not an open ending, because that's not the kind of show that it was. So I think that's what at the time there was a lot of people that hated that ending because we needed something definitive. You know, if they did that on the X Files, right? The X Files has spent 10 years doing that. Like I said, Inception, Christopher Nolan movies. Imagine like if a Batman movie. You sit down and watch a Batman movie and just the screen went black and you're like, what? Like you because that's not the kind of movies that they're supposed to be.
Right.
So, but yeah, I know I asked that because of New Jersey and I brought up Tony, but
I mean, you know something funny about? I heard this comedian recently, and he was talking about how guys from New Jersey and New York will tell you their occupations in like this ominous. You're gonna assume I'm a wise guy type deal.
yeah,
Like his uncle Antonio. I deliver packages. I bring you a package or whatever. The
I'm a
boss
waste
tells me I
management,
need
yeah.
that. Boss tells me I need to bring some here. I bring some there. And the guy's like, yeah, dude's working for the USPS. He's got a
Yeah.
great pension, a retirement plan, a 401k, and all this. But he'll tell it to you like he runs errands for the boss.
yeah, I run. What is it? The Joe
No,
Pesci
dude, you
is
run
that?
from
Yeah.
dogs when
Yeah.
you put the envelope in
The other
the...
day, I was delivered a package and the dog almost got me. I had to,
Oh, walk in.
I had to take down the dog. Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, for me, like, I've never been, I told you I was in Buffalo, New York, but we flew there. So I've never been, we've talked about going to like DC because I've never been. I'd love to see DC. I know it's crime, but like I would love to see DC.
I'll tell you one about DC. I was chugging along I was in DC trying to find somewhere to park. And I was like, man, it is not looking truck friendly around here.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to get back to the interstate and find somewhere. And in the trucking industry, like if you're not parked somewhere at a certain time, like most truck stops are blown out where dudes are like parking on the access roads. Like everyone has to camp out at some point, right? But so they get really crowded. So you're trying to find somewhere to park before you run out of time. Because if you run out of time and you're still on the road, you like get a red flag and like the DOT can cite you for it and all kind of stuff. They make it really hard
Yeah.
to make America run with trucks. I mean, they do everything they can against those guys. It's awful. But so doing that, I kind of lost my train of thought. But
You're looking for a place to park.
yeah, I'm looking for a place to
DC.
park in DC. So I get a call, and it's like 1:00 in the morning, and I get a call from the trucking company I work for. I'm like, what are they doing? And they're like, hey, you need to find somewhere to turn around, like now. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm looking for somewhere to park. They said, okay, that's cool. But unless you want to talk to dudes with earpieces and suits, you need to turn around right now. You're like a few hundred yards away from Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh.
And I don't know if you know this or not, but it's a felony to have an 18-wheeler on Pennsylvania Avenue for
Oh.
obvious reasons.
Yeah.
What if I'm hauling 40,000 pounds of lithium and I
Yeah.
got a freaking bang stick ready to go?
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
You're not catching me, coppers.
right. So I said, Roger that. And we hung up the phone. And there was like this strip mall that had these bushes out front. And there was like a laundromat. And like,
Through the bushes.
dude, I took them all out. I took every one of them. I pulled in there and my trailer just freaking plowed all those bushes. And I turned around and I was like, honestly, at this point, if I get a ticket, at least I'm not going to federal prison
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, they're real serious about that.
I didn't.
Apparently, my GPS on the truck pinged, and they were like, "Crap, he's headed."
He's headed to prison.
He's headed to the White House.
What is he hauling?
40,000 pounds of frozen broccoli.
Boom! It's gonna
Yeah.
stink up the joint.
Yeah.
They'd still be cleaning it up now.
Yeah.
Broccoli everywhere.
But no, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, I never even
But
thought about that either.
DC, I will say, it's kind of disappointing.
Is it?
Mhm.
Even going to see like the
I'm
the
sure,
Nick-
like, if you're going strictly for the Capitol and all that,
yeah.
yeah. If it was me and I was planning that trip, I think I would go to Maryland and do my vacation in Maryland and maybe have a day reserved to go into DC to see that stuff.
Yeah,
That's how I
so
would probably do it.
that's kind
Because
of what.
Maryland's awesome.
Well, I was gonna say that's kind of like the plan would be the plan because like I don't think that there's again I don't know anything about the city, but like is there anything to do in DC that'd be worth put because the crime rate in DC is insane, right? So is it like hopping in like an Uber and then going to the Capitol, the Lincoln Memorial, maybe even a couple of museums like for like a day or two, but like staying there and actually vacationing in DC,
I
that's
think
not.
the Smithsonian is there too.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
definitely hit that.
Because like for me, the way I look at it is Trump, if he's president at the time when we go, if we were able to go, like he could shut down the city to travel through it, in the motorcade. So I'm assuming that if they decide to travel, or I don't even because again, I don't know the laws or what they do there. But like if the senators are in town, do they shut down streets to let the senators or
That's a good question.
the House representatives, or are they shutting places down because they need to go? Because if everybody's in town, that's what there's 100 senators and there's I forget how many. There's
Man.
like 400 House representatives.
I haven't seen School of Rock in a long
Right,
time.
yeah, agreed. But I'm just saying that, like, let's say that there's like 400 House representatives and
Schoolhouse Rock.
100 senators, and it's time for lunch, and they're going out into the city for food. That's a lot of people to
I
head
don't
into
know.
the city for food.
That's a good question. I never had that issue there.
See, that's why I can't ride bikes. Because my brain is like trying to figure out stupid crap. That's why I'm like, I would love to just,
You'd be really vigilant, I think, and way more careful than I am.
probably. I'd be like, all right, hey, I'm gonna go ride a bike, and I would go around the street and then come back. Like, that was fun.
What a ride!
Yeah, whatever. Evan, you won't believe it. I went on this long ride. Where'd you go? I went to 7-Eleven and back. What how did it go? I ran over 2 cats, and what's the terminology when the bike
Only
falls?
laid her down once.
That's what that's it is laid her down. I laid her down once because I
Hit
forgot
some
to
grass clippings and had to lay her down. Barb fell off the back.
When I hit the gas, my butt hit the wheel. I know, I felt it. I know what it's like now.
Yeah,
But
you're a real road dog now.
oh, jeez, yeah. I don't even know how I would even.
I don't see you have a blast.
Yeah, probably. But like, it's just one of those things where like I feel like it would be riding around in a parking lot where I would feel most comfortable. And the thing is like just like when you first drive, right? Whenever I was in driver's ed, my driving experience is a little different than yours. So like the first like 2 days of driver's ed was literally in a school parking lot. That's what the instructor did. We would drive, slam on the brakes, hit the gas, slam on the brakes, drive around, stuff like that. So maybe that's what I would do on the motorcycle where I'm like, okay, because from what I understand, like if you don't brake right, like your back side could come out from underneath
Or
you.
your front wheel wash out from under you.
Yeah, you were saying that if you lose control of your front wheel, like you're done. Yeah, you're
going down.
You're going down. Whereas with the back, you can figure out how to
Yeah.
potentially compensate. Unless you're this way. If you're turned that
Yeah.
way, it's going down.
Hang on just a second. I got my leg. But anyways, yeah, there's definitely some rules and experience that you pick up along the way, but
Yeah.
the idea is to have a good grasp on that before you get out on the road, right? And so that you're not a danger to yourself and everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend everybody does the motorcycle course. I actually had a lot of fun doing that, and there's things that I learned there. And I'm not the best rider by any means, but I've done okay. And but there's definitely a lot to learn there, and it's something that I feel like everybody should have, not just for yourself, but for those around you too.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I may have to take you up on the offer. Maybe get one of those sidecars. What are they called?
Dude, give me 10 minutes with you on the Grom, and I guarantee.
What's a Grom?
So it's a miniature motorcycle, right?
Is that what you rode to the
Yeah.
to the?
Oh, I've rode it to a few of our
Okay.
meetups.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's honestly it's more seat time than anything I have. It's a 125cc. It's the exact same clutch, one down, four up, just like every other motorcycle you'll ever ride. It's the most forgiving thing to learn on. The clutch is very easy, and you can feel it. You know what I mean? So you put it in first gear, and you let out the clutch until the bike starts moving. You just put your feet up. You're going. You know what I mean? It's real
Yeah.
easy. I mean, easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
But honest to goodness, if I had 10, 15 minutes with you in a parking lot, I could have you riding on your own power and coming back to me. No problem.
What we should do is we should do that.
We'll
But,
get you
like,
all up in some bubble wrap.
Yeah, I was just about to say I'll show up with like the helmet, the elbow pads, the knee pads, and I'll walk like that just to film just for.
Heck yeah, brother. I love to see it.
But you know how like Fred would probably laugh his butt off.
You know what?
Yeah, no, when I say that, like he would laugh because he knows that I'm being over dramatic as far as just for the intent, but
I think that he would expect it.
he would actually probably be jealous because I would think at this point if I was going to learn from anybody, I would probably learn from Fred.
Oh, he'd
Yeah.
be a great teacher.
He'd be a great teacher. He taught me how to shoot.
Yeah.
So my carry gun, he taught me how to shoot. In fact, like I mentioned before, I had a Smith and Wesson, and my groupings were just off.
M&P Shield or
I don't remember.
oh,
I saw it at a gun show, and I was like, hey, that's pretty cheap. Let's buy it. And then I bought it, and then as I shot it, just never could get comfortable with it. My groupings were there, and then I went shooting with him, and I kept telling him about like I kept anticipating the PAL. That's everybody's biggest issue, for the most part when you start pulling the trigger is you're expecting the PAL, and that's what I was doing. So he handed me his 229. And I shot it, and I was like, "This is not bad. It feels good in my hands." And I started shooting, and like my grouping was really close to where I wanted it to be. And I told him I was like, "I want this gun." And he's like, "Well," he's like, "if I find one, I'll tell you." And I remember I was sitting here, and phone rings, and he's like, "Hey, I found one." He's like, "It's down the road over in Springtown." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "You have 48 hours to purchase it, or I will." So.
he plays for keeps too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, I hopped in the car and I went and got it, and you don't have to worry about it. It's mine, and I've had it ever since. So
Nice. I'm a big fan of the Fred, man. He's a good dude.
he is. He's a guy, and then we'll wrap this up. He should be on the show, and just like with you, I'm excited for him to be on the show because this is a guy that he's been through it. You've heard very little bit, maybe if I understand of his
Heard
story.
bits and pieces.
Right, and he'll hopefully he'll want to speak to some of it. I know he'll want to speak to most of it when we sit down here, but like he's a guy that will break his back for just about anybody.
I believe
Like there
that.
was there was a guy that hung out with us on the show that lived in Cincinnati, and he was freaking out in a Discord. Do you know what Discord is?
A chat room.
Yeah. So in our Discord, he's kind of freaking out because he was supposedly a veteran that was dealing with PTSD. Fred hops in his car and drives to Cincinnati, and he drove all the way there. Dude ghosted him. And I was so mad. And Fred was like, "Yeah, it happens." I was like, "What are you talking about?" It just happens. He drove from Dallas, Fort
He had a
Worth,
lot of time to think about that on the way there.
and on the way back. But the thing about it though is like his goal was to help somebody. He got
It
there.
didn't matter, yeah.
He got there. The guy decided that he didn't want Fred's help, and then that was the end of it. So he got to see a couple of people that he knew up there, and he came back. There was a guy that used to hang out with us in Houston. Fred drove down to Houston and spent the day with the guy. One of the first things that we did before we even started streaming was we met at the previous church we used to go to, and there was a guy that took a job in Houston, so he moved his family to Houston, and like I think it was like a year later, he got laid off, and so he's down there, no family, no nothing. We heard that he got laid off. I messaged his wife over Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think if we just show up and surprise him?" She's like, "Do it." So we rented a car. It was me, my buddy, another guy named Aaron. It was Fred. Fred was like, "Yes, I will fund all of it." And then it was me, Josh, Aaron, and Fred, and we drove. We spent we woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. We got there at like 10 a.m. and then we just took Skylar out for like we took him to see Star Wars. We took him out shooting. We went out to eat. We did all this sort of stuff, and I think we were all back home by midnight that same, if you want to call it, day. But it was a wild thing, and
That's cool though.
Fred was all about it. He was like, "Yes, let's do that." So I can't wait to have him on here because like his life is definitely it is definitely something that is he just like he told you on Monday, he has struggled with the guy in the mirror, but it all comes back down to his dad. His dad, this Baptist preacher who never thought any of his kids was his, because if you remember, he said it wasn't.
I didn't know he was a preacher.
Yeah, yeah,
That brings a whole new element to
it
that
does.
story.
Yeah, it does. That's.
I mean, I know he's a human like everybody else, but
preacher that waited till I think when Fred's youngest brother graduated, then
a supposed man of God feeling that way though, that's wild.
kicked his mom out as soon as the last one graduated. If I remember correctly, the timeline, but basically like said none of his kids were his, and then at the age of like 80 or 81, made them all take paternity tests to verify that all of them were his.
Why?
Because,
That late, Well, that's his story to tell,
yeah.
anyways.
Well, no,
but
the thing is, but ultimately, like that's the kind of life, and like there's a reason why he's done the things that he's done, but like it's also a praise God moment that this guy who's been through all kinds of stuff was still able to find his way out of the mess, out of the dirt and the grime that comes with the dysfunction
well,
of that family.
Think about what I said earlier, and something things that I notice, and it's all those experiences and all of the bad things, the good things, all of it combined, it gives Fred the wisdom that he has now. He wouldn't be the same Fred if he
Agreed.
didn't have those hell-raising years and being a holy terror and whatever. Like that's what makes his testimony so powerful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It also gives him the backbone, and you can say anything to him. It
Right.
doesn't phase
Right.
him. He's there.
And that's something there's a vibe that you get like your first time meeting the dude.
Yeah.
About that. Where you're like, And then I really enjoyed Monday night. I know it probably didn't seem like I was enjoying it, but I did.
It
But
got a little awkward.
yeah, he came out hot, didn't he? Golly.
Anyways, you were saying.
Yeah,
I don't wanna-
no. We'll keep it service level, right? But dude was like, what I left there thinking was like, man, he wouldn't have called me out. He wouldn't have said anything to me if he didn't care about me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, why would he bring it up if he didn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm just really thankful that the turn of events in my life in the last like 5 years has put me to the point where like I'm going to a Christian men's meetup with the boys at church every
Yeah.
other Monday, and my favorite ones are when it's just a couple of us
Yeah.
in a room talking about real stuff
Yeah.
that maybe you can't talk to nobody else about, and having that outlet or whatever of knowing that the dudes listening to you are listening to you first of all and have your best interests in mind and want to, have a kindred spirit with you in your faith as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think it also helps that I think what we have facilitated with the men's group is the non-judgmental
Yeah,
thing. So
dude.
like the call outs. So like you were saying that Fred has this love for you to say the things that he did. But if you notice something going on with him, he also has the capacity to be like, okay, what do you see? Talk to me, right? And then,
There's that mutual respect.
yeah, because
knowing that no matter what comes out of our mouth, it's going to be of a place of love.
yeah,
Yeah.
because there's some things that's between him and me and whatever the situation where he has gotten a lot better with some situations where he has talked to me about things that's his business, and I've just said, hey man, you should probably do this, and then maybe like a month later he's like, hey, I did this, and I'm like, yeah. I do.
And
Yeah. So
I'll be
right.
taking my
Yeah,
thank yous
no,
now.
no. It'll definitely be interesting how this plays out with me and him because like on the show, and I can't remember. Have you ever watched Fire Resistant at all?
I have.
Okay, so like that we have this dynamic where like yes we are there to talk about Jesus, but there's also this friction between us because like he's the manly man, I'm the pop culture guy, and I'm always trying to make him mad and or make him laugh or both, make him laugh while he's mad or vice versa. So, but being able to sit down and just be Fred and Aaron and not Fred and Ern or something like that, just talking and just letting him tell his story. I think it'll be interesting dynamic, and I'm looking forward to it because like as soon as I told him about
Yeah,
this
this will
idea,
be just sort of y'all's like behind the music.
yeah,
maybe.
well, yeah. But yeah, just non-combative, right? It'll
Sure.
just be just chatting, but
Friendly banter.
yeah,
right?
yeah, friendly, yeah. Even though he is been
Sometimes
very
he seems
angry.
like he's playing for keeps.
Yeah,
Sometimes though.
he's always playing for keeps. He's always
I
playing
like
for
him.
keeps.
He's an absolute liability. Sometimes you're like, ooh, what's he gonna say?
Yes, yes. So I will tell you
I
this.
love that.
I'll tell you this, and then we're at the 2 hour mark. But when we took Skylar to the movies, we went and saw Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Okay, have you ever seen that movie?
Man,
It's the first.
probably-
It's the first one of the new ones that just came out.
Okay.
So either way, so I'll tell you the scene and then I'll tell you what happened. So one thing that you definitely need to do before you die is go see a comedy with Fred in a movie theater. It is
I mean, I've heard him laugh. I've made him laugh a couple times.
yeah. But imagine him like red faced, can't stop laughing. It just
Like side cramp
Oh
laughing.
my gosh, your face will end up hurting by the end of the movie. But anyways, so we go to this movie. Okay, Fred's not a Star Wars sci-fi guy at all.
I could probably figure that.
Yeah. So he's never. I mean, I think he's heard of like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and stuff
Sure.
like that. So, anyways, we're here. We're watching this movie. So at the very end of the movie, the chick Ray is fighting the bad guy, Kylo Ren. They're laser fighting
Okay.
in the snow, right? And she is about to kill him, if I remember correctly. I don't try to remember this movie, but so like she's about to kill him or something, and then like the Death Star looking thing kind of starts opening up. So like this huge rift just comes in like perfectly in between both Rey and Kylo, so she can't kill him, right? It's got the John Williams score going on, like all of a sudden,
Super dramatic moment.
super dramatic moment, and he just yells "bullsh" as loud as he possibly can over the entire like auditorium. Everybody starts laughing because at that point, by when the movie was out,
He was fed up. He couldn't contain himself.
Well, people had
anymore.
already seen. I'm assuming people had already seen the movie like 5 or 6 times, so nobody was seeing that movie except for Fred for the first time.
Yeah.
So he was just like, "Bull crap." It was
Fred, the whole movie's
no.
bull crap.
He,
if
was-
they-
yeah, he was.
It's-
Well, he thought in his mind that I guess she was going to kill him, and that was going to be the end of the movie. Because you expect to see good guy versus bad guy win, but he doesn't understand the Star Wars dynamic of you tell a story through a trilogy. But so Evan, I appreciate you doing this. I'm so happy that you did this, and I hope that at some point you'll come back on here again. We'll explore those rebel kind of days of. Because you've told I guess a few stories to me about taking rides in Fort Worth and cops and all
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean, if you can tell those stories,
I
let's say,
think this
let's say
statute of limitations might be up by now.
hypothetical, you heard a story of a guy.
Know a guy.
I know a guy named
He
Craig.
knows a lot of other guys,
Yeah.
and they do things on street legal mini bikes. And,
With weird driver's license plates or
yeah.
plates, yeah. But I'm so glad that you did it. I'm so glad that you are in my life, because like
Thanks,
you're
man.
part of this group of men that I talk about a lot, because the men's group that God formed was God formed. Because when me, Dallas, and Chris were going to Furry's Tacos, whatever we were going to,
Yeah.
just shooting the crap, just getting to know each other, never would have thought it would have panned into this. And you had mentioned it earlier. I do agree that those times like Monday was special, right? That moment with Fred, even though it was awkward,
Yeah,
it would have never
that was a God thing too.
right. It would have never happened. And Fred said he was not going to go anymore. But I think that because he said he doesn't want to go to the restaurants. He wants to have what we had. So when I told him, I was like, "You coming Monday?" "No, I'm not coming to that." I said, "Well, we're meeting at the church." He said, "Okay, I'll go to that." So the fact that he showed up,
honestly,
yeah,
I mean, real quick, I kind of agree with him.
yeah. Well, because we can't be real when there's all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy music and girls, not girls, but you know what I mean, waitresses and blah 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 blah.
Interruptions all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
etc.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Fred would never have had the conversation with you at Buffalo Wild Wings.
No.
Right, but then also again for that special Monday, a couple days ago, if there was 10 of us there, I don't think Fred would have ever
think so
done.
either.
Yeah, so I think that was reserved specifically for you, and that teaching that Fred threw down was for both of us. Was
Oh, I 100%
was
believe that.
specific to us. So, but anyways, back to what I'm saying is like I'm so glad that God brought you into our lives, and I love your family. I love what God's doing at the church we go to, and to put you on the spot, because what we do, the way that we end all of these podcasts, is like some sort of like nugget of information, like, hey, this is something from me to you, as far as the person that's listening to it, like, hey, I was this way, or now I'm this way, or whatever. Don't ride bikes without motorcycle license, or something that you think would benefit someone who's listening.
Yeah, it just kind of put me on the spot.
Heck
Well,
yeah, that's the whole point. It's Aaron Ask America. I'm asking you, what nugget of wisdom do you have?
I would say, based on how we've kind of ended our conversation tonight, I would say that I encourage every man out there to form some sort of what we got going on in that support group, because there's things that socially it's like acceptable or whatever, and there's a lot of that, but at the end of the day, your mental health matters and
Yeah.
your spiritual health matters. And one way that I've found and that you have found that's very effective is to find like-minded men and get together and understand that y'all are stronger together, and that it's not a bunch of dudes crying in a circle and hugging each other and whatever. But sometimes I wish it was. But that it's just it's important to have that support system.
Yeah.
So that if you don't have that and you feel like your life is missing something, that might be it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think to compound on that, as we're closing this out, that I think the biggest weapon that the enemy has against the men, especially in for first world country, is isolation. Thinking that you have nowhere
You're in
else
this
to.
alone.
Yeah,
This is a you problem,
Yeah.
only you.
yep. And the only way
Yeah.
to solve it is to bounce out of here. So I think that's the biggest weapon, especially in first world countries.
Absolutely.
So, Evan, appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for having me, and yeah, I hope. I mean, I don't really say anything significant or profound, but it was a great time,
Yeah.
and look forward to watching more Aaron Asks America, where he asks Americans, and
I came up with that like right before.
Dude,
But
gold.
all right, well, this has been Aaron Ask America, and we will talk to you next time.